The real battlefield is within us. Dalai Lama, this inner war, is the essence of the human experience. It is not a mere metaphor, but the raw reality of our existence. Our desires, ardent and insatiable, collide violently with the implacable limitations of reality. This conflict shapes our journey, defines our character, and determines our destiny. The ancients already understood this fundamental truth. Buddha spoke of desire as the root of suffering. Plato described the soul as tripartite, divided between reason, spirit, and appetite. And the Stoics taught us about accepting what is beyond our control. These are not mere philosophical theories, but maps of the human psyche, drawn by those who have delved into the depths of being. Desire is the driving force of our existence. It is the fire that drives us, that makes us create, conquer, and transcend. But it is also the source of our anguish. When reality proves inflexible in the face of our wishes, how many of us have lost ourselves in the frantic search for satisfaction, only to find emptiness in the end? Reality, in turn, is the battlefield where our desires are tested. She is relentless, indifferent to our desires. It is the principle of limitation, the no that echoes in front of our I want. But it is also the fertile ground where we can cultivate wisdom, strength, and resilience. This dialectic between desire and reality is the beating heart of the human condition. It is a conflict that unfolds not only in the great moments of our lives, but in every moment of our existence. Observe carefully, and you will see this war manifesting itself in small, everyday decisions, in fleeting thoughts, in emotions that arise and disappear like waves in the ocean of consciousness. Imagine a young professional, full of ambitions and dreams. He ardently desires success, recognition, material fulfillment. His desire drives him to work long hours, to constantly seek approval from his superiors, to compete fiercely with his colleagues. But reality does not always meet your expectations. Projects fail, promotions are denied, stress accumulates. Here we see conflict in its clearest form. Insatiable desire colliding with the limitations of reality. Or consider a couple in love at the height of their romance. The desire for union, for completeness, for eternal love is overwhelming. They project their fantasies of perfection onto each other, creating an idealized image of the partner and the relationship. But reality eventually sets in. Personality differences emerge, conflicts arise, routine wears down the initial passion. The desire for perfect love clashes with the imperfect reality of human relationships. These examples illustrate how the inner war permeates every aspect of our lives. It is not something that only happens to others or only in times of crisis. It is the very texture of our everyday experience. German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer captured this dynamic in his work, The World as Will and Representation. For him, will, which we can equate to desire, is the essence of the world, a blind and insatiable force that constantly drives us. But this desire is doomed to frustration, as reality can never completely satisfy it. Thus, we oscillate between boredom and pain, between the dissatisfaction of unfulfilled desire and the emptiness that follows its momentary fulfillment. This view may seem pessimistic, but it contains a profound truth about the nature of our experience. How many times have we failed to achieve a long-desired goal, only to feel a brief moment of satisfaction followed by a new desire? How many times have we found ourselves thinking, when I have this, I will be happy, only to discover that happiness remains elusive even after we achieve it? Psychoanalyst Jacques Lacan offered a complementary perspective with his concept of lack. For Lacan, desire arises from a fundamental lack in our being, an essential incompleteness that constantly drives us to seek something outside ourselves. But this search is always frustrated, as the object of desire is always an inadequate substitute for the completeness we long for. We see this dynamic manifest in countless ways in our society. Rampant consumerism, for example, can be seen as a desperate attempt to fill this inner void with material objects. We shop endlessly, always hoping that the next gadget, the next outfit, the next car will finally bring us the satisfaction we seek. But this satisfaction never arrives, or it is momentary, leading us to an endless cycle of consumption and dissatisfaction. Likewise, the obsessive search for status and social recognition can be understood as a manifestation of this dynamic. We constantly seek the approval of others. We accumulate likes. On social networks, we pursue prestigious titles and positions. But no matter how much we achieve, no matter how much we are admired, something always seems missing. The ego is never satisfied, always demanding more validation, more recognition. This inner war also manifests itself in our interpersonal relationships. The desire for connection, for intimacy, to be understood and accepted often collides with the reality of our differences and limitations. We project our expectations and fantasies onto others, only to be disappointed when they inevitably fail to live up to those projections. How many relationships are damaged by the inability to accept the other person as they really are, instead of the idealized image we create? Philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre captured this tension in his famous phrase, "Hell is other people." For Sartre, the other's gaze objectifies us, reduces us to a fixed image that contradicts our essential freedom. Thus, our relationships are marked by a fundamental conflict between the desire for connection and the desire for autonomy, between the need for the other and the fear of being swallowed by them. But is this inner war just a source of suffering? Is our human condition just a cosmic tragedy, condemned to desire the impossible and be eternally frustrated? Here we come to the heart of our reflection. For it is precisely in this conflict, in this tension between desire and reality, that the possibility of transcendence, of growth, of authentic fulfillment resides. Psychologist Carl Jung offers us a valuable perspective with his concept of individuation. For Jung, the goal of life is not to eliminate conflict, but to integrate it. It is through confrontation with our shadows, with our internal contradictions, that we become more complete and integrated beings. From this perspective, the inner war is not an obstacle to be overcome, but the path of personal development itself. It is in the friction between our desires and reality that we forge our character, that we discover our true capabilities, that we become who we really are. Consider the example of an artist struggling to express his vision. The desire to create something beautiful and meaningful constantly clashes with technical limitations, with the resistance of the material, with the inadequacy of words or images to capture the original idea. But it is precisely in this struggle that the work of art is born. It is in the clash with reality that the artist refines his technique, deepens his vision, discovers new expressive possibilities. Or think of someone facing a serious illness. The desire for health, for life, collides violently with the reality of the body's fragility, of mortality. But it is often in this confrontation that people discover an inner strength that they were unaware of, that they redefine their priorities, that they find a deeper meaning for their lives. These examples illustrate how the conflict between desire and reality can be a transformative force. It's not about denying desire, nor about passively resigning yourself to reality, but about finding a creative synthesis between the two. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche expressed this idea in his concept of a more fatty love of fate. For Nietzsche, the true affirmation of life is not in wishing things were different, but in loving life exactly as it is, with all its contradictions and difficulties. It is not a passive resignation, but an active and creative acceptance of reality. Likewise, the Buddhist concept of non-attachment does not mean the elimination of desire, but a different relationship with it. It is the ability to desire without completely identifying with the desire, to seek without being obsessively attached to the results. These perspectives point us to a path to navigating the war within. It is not a question of winning the war, in the sense of eliminating conflict, but of transcending it, of finding a peace that does not depend on the absence of conflict, but on the ability to dance with it. How, then, can we cultivate this capacity in our everyday lives? How can we transform the inner war from a source of suffering into a path of growth and fulfillment? The first step is the development of consciousness. We need to become keen observers of our inner lives, witnessing our desires, thoughts, and emotions without completely identifying with them. The practice of meditation is a powerful tool for developing this ability. Imagine sitting quietly, watching the flow of your mind. A desire arises. Perhaps the desire to check your cell phone, to eat something sweet, to plan the future. Instead of reacting immediately, you simply observe. Note the sensation in the body, the impulse to act, the thoughts that accompany the desire, and then gently return your attention to your breath, to the present moment. Over time, this practice allows us to create space between the stimulus and the response. We begin to realize that we are not our desires, that we have the ability to choose how to respond to them. This is the seed of inner freedom. The second step is the cultivation of acceptance. Not a passive or resigned acceptance, but an active and courageous acceptance of reality as it is. This does not mean giving up on our dreams or goals, but rather recognizing and honoring the limits of reality as we work to transform it. Practice saying yes to what is, even when it's difficult. When faced with an obstacle, instead of reacting with anger or frustration, try saying, "This too. This is part of my journey too." Notice how this attitude changes your relationship with the experience. The third step is developing compassion, starting with ourselves. The war within is often exacerbated by our tendency towards self-criticism and judgment. Learning to be kind to ourselves, to recognize our shared humanity, can alleviate much of the suffering associated with internal conflict. Try this practice. Every time you notice an inner conflict, a frustration, an unfulfilled desire, place your hand over your heart and say to yourself, "This is difficult. Suffering is part of the human experience. May I be kind with myself right now?" Feel the effect of these words on your body and mind. The fourth step is the cultivation of gratitude. Gratitude has the power to transform our relationship with desire and reality. When we practice gratitude regularly, we begin to notice the abundance that already exists in our lives, reducing the power of insatiable desire over us. Create a daily gratitude ritual. Before bed, list 3 things you are grateful for. It doesn't have to be big things. The taste of breakfast, a smile from a stranger, the warmth of the sun on your skin. Notice how this practice changes your perception over time. The fifth step is creative engagement with reality. Instead of seeing reality as just an obstacle to our desires, we can learn to see it as a dance partner, a co-creator of our experience. Try this approach. The next time you face an obstacle, instead of trying to force your way through it or giving up, ask yourself, how can I work through this situation? What is this reality inviting me to learn or do in a better way, different? Be open to the unexpected possibilities that may arise from this creative dialogue with reality. The sixth step is the cultivation of detachment. This does not mean not having desires or goals, but rather not identifying completely with them. It is the ability to hold our desires lightly, to pursue our goals with dedication, but without obsessive attachment to the results. Practice setting intentions instead of expectations. For example, instead of saying, "I need to get this job to be happy," try, "My intention is to do my best in this interview and trust the process." Notice how this shift in perspective affects your experience. The seventh step is developing resilience. Resilience is not the ability to avoid suffering, but to navigate through it with grace and learn from it. It is the quality that allows us to face life's inevitable challenges and disappointments without losing our integrity or our ability to love. A powerful practice for developing resilience is daily reflection on the difficulties faced. Each night, ask yourself, what did I learn today? How did I grow through the challenges I faced? What strength or quality did I discover in myself? This practice helps us see difficulties not as obstacles, but as opportunities for growth. As we integrate these practices into our lives, we begin to experience a subtle but profound shift in our relationship with the war within. Conflict does not go away. It remains an integral part of our human experience, but our relationship with him changes. We begin to see that the real battleground is not between our desires and reality, but between our ignorance and our innate wisdom. True war is not to conquer or subjugate, but to awaken, to become more aware, more compassionate, more alive. In this process, we discover that the peace we seek is not in the absence of conflict, but in the ability to embrace conflict with grace and wisdom. We discover that happiness is not in fulfilling all our desires, but in the ability to desire what we already have. We discover that freedom is not in controlling reality, but in freeing ourselves from our own illusions and attachments. This is the spiritual alchemy that the ancient masters spoke of. It is the transformation of the lead of our internal conflicts into the gold of wisdom and compassion. It is a lifelong process, a never-ending path of self-discovery and self-transcendence. But how does this understanding manifest itself in our everyday lives? How can we see this transformation happening in the small moments of our lives? Imagine a stressed executive, constantly pressured by deadlines and expectations. He practices meditation daily, observing the whirlwind of thoughts and emotions that arise in his mind. Gradually, he begins to notice a space between external stimuli and his reactions. When a colleague offers criticism, instead of reacting defensively, they pause, breathe, and respond calmly and clearly. The conflict is still there, but your relationship with it has changed. Or think of a mother dealing with a rebellious teenage son. His desire to protect and control clashes with his son's need for independence. But as she practices acceptance and compassion, she begins to see conflict from a new perspective. Instead of fighting against her son's rebellion, she learns to honor his growth process, offering support and limits with love. The tension does not disappear, but turns into a dance of love and mutual respect. Consider an artist struggling with writer's block. Your desire to create something perfect paralyzes you. But by practicing detachment and creative engagement with reality, he begins to see the blockage not as an obstacle, but as part of the creative process. He learns to play with his limitations, to embrace chaos and imperfection. And paradoxically, it is in this surrender that his creativity blossoms in unexpected ways. Or imagine someone dealing with a chronic illness. The desire for health and comfort constantly collides with the reality of pain and physical limitation. But through the practice of mindfulness and gratitude, this person begins to find moments of peace and joy even in the midst of discomfort. She discovers an inner resilience that transcends external circumstances. These examples illustrate how the transformation of inner warfare is not a single, dramatic event, but a gradual process that manifests itself in the small moments of our lives. It's the kind smile we give ourselves when we make a mistake. It is the conscious pause before responding to a provocation. It's the ability to appreciate the beauty of a sunset, even on a difficult day. As we progress on this journey, we begin to realize that the war within is not our enemy, but our teacher. Every conflict, every frustration, every moment of tension between desire and reality is an opportunity to awaken, to grow, to become more fully human. Psychologist and mystic Ram Dass expressed this idea beautifully. Suffering is grace in disguise. When we view our internal conflicts through this lens, they become portals to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world. But it's important to remember that this journey is not linear. There will be moments of clarity and moments of confusion, moments of deep peace and moments of intense turmoil. The inner war doesn't end, it transforms. And it is in this ongoing dance between conflict and resolution, between tension and relaxation, that our consciousness expands and our capacity to love grows. Philosopher Ken Wilber talks about the development of consciousness as a process of transcending and including. We do not abandon our desires or deny reality, but we include them in a broader perspective. Our desires become expressions of divine creativity flowing through us. Reality becomes the sacred field where this creativity manifests. In this expanded perspective, the inner war reveals itself as an aspect of the cosmic dance, the divine game that the Hindus call Lila. It is not something to be conquered or overcome, but something to be danced, to be lived fully. And so we come to a paradoxical understanding. True peace lies not in the absence of conflict, but in the ability to be at peace with conflict. True freedom is not in fulfilling all our desires, but in being free in relation to our desires. True happiness is not in having everything we want, but in wanting everything we have. This is the wisdom that great spiritual masters have offered us over the centuries. This is what Buddha meant when he talked about the middle way, neither indulgence nor denial, but a balanced relationship with our desires and with reality. It's what Jesus taught when he talked about being in the world but not of the world, fully engaged with reality but not identified with it. As we integrate this wisdom into our lives, we begin to experience a profound shift in our experience. Life's ups and downs continue, but we experience them in a different way. There is a feeling of space, of openness, of inner freedom, even in the midst of difficulties. In moments of joy and fulfillment, there is a deeper appreciation, not clouded by the fear of loss or the desire for more. In moments of pain and frustration, there is a compassionate acceptance, an understanding that this too is part of the rich tapestry of our human experience. And perhaps most importantly, there is a growing sense of connection with ourselves, with others, with life as a whole. As we free ourselves from the prison of our egoic desires and fears, we open ourselves to a broader reality. We begin to feel our fundamental interconnectedness with all life, to realize that our individual inner war is just a reflection of a much larger cosmic dance. In this state of expanded consciousness, the inner war does not end. It transforms into a sacred dance. Our desires become expressions of the creative impulse of life flowing through us. Reality becomes the sacred field where this creativity manifests. And we become the dancers, moving gracefully between the known and the unknown, between being and becoming. This is the promise and challenge of our human journey. It is not an easy path, but it is a deeply rewarding path. Every step we take toward greater awareness, every moment of compassionate acceptance, every act of love in the face of fear is a victory, not over reality or our desires, but over our own ignorance and limitation. And so, we return to the Dalai Lama's wisdom. The true battlefield is within us, but now we see this battle with new eyes. It is not a war to be won, but a field of transformation to be cultivated. It is the sacred ground where our humanity meets our divinity, where the finite touches the infinite, where the individual merges with the universal. From this expanded perspective, every moment of our lives becomes an opportunity to awaken, to love, to serve. Every challenge becomes an invitation to grow, every conflict a chance to deepen our understanding, every encounter an opportunity to extend compassion. And so, we invite you to embrace your own inner war with courage and compassion, seeing every desire, every frustration, every moment of conflict as a portal to a more expansive consciousness, dancing with grace between the ideal and the real, between what is and what could be. Remember, you are not alone on this journey. Every human being is navigating their own version of this inner war, and it is precisely in this shared struggle that we find our common humanity, our fundamental connection. May you find peace amid chaos, freedom amid limitations, and love amid conflict. May you transform your inner war into a sacred dance, a unique and beautiful expression of the divine mystery that is life. And above all, may you remember, in moments of greatest challenge and in moments of greatest joy, that you are much more than your desires, much more than your struggles. You are the consciousness itself that witnesses this cosmic dance, the infinite field of love and possibility from which all experience arises and to which all experience returns. In that realization lies the true peace, the true freedom, the true happiness that we all seek. It is not something to be achieved in the future, but something to be discovered here and now, in the heart of our present experience, in the very center of our inner war. May this discovery light your path, inspire your journey, and transform your life. For it is only by fully embracing our humanity, with all its contradictions and conflicts, that we can awaken to our true divine nature. And so, with gratitude and reverence for the unique journey that is your life, we conclude this exploration of the war within. May it be a seed of transformation in your heart, an invitation to a life lived with greater awareness, compassion, and courage. May peace be with you, within you and around you, now and always. And